What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about Ferrari. Directed by Mann and written by Troy Kennedy Martin, this film stars people like Adam Driver, Penélope Cruz, Shailene Woodley, and many more. And before we get too far into this review, let's go ahead and hear a word from today's sponsor. Whether you're trying to get yourself in the right headspace for the day, maybe you got a lot of stress going on in your day-to-day life, or you're like me and you do not have a good sleep schedule, you're going to want to try out the sponsor of today's video, and that is Hemp Honey. They use all natural ingredients, no GMOs, no artificial flavors, infused with their hemp extract to give you a various amount of products that can give you different forms of alleviation for your specific needs. Me personally, as I mentioned, I don't sleep all that well, so I've been trying their Hemp Honey sticks, the sleep version, which these are great. You can literally ingest them right out of the stick itself. You can put it into your coffee, into your tea, whatever the case may be. And I'd like it because it doesn't make me ever feel overly drowsy or anything like that. But instead, once I've actually fallen asleep, I'm having far deeper sleep, waking up feeling far more rested. And the kind folks over at Hemp Honey are giving you guys the chance to get 10% off of your order over on their website by following the link in my description box down below and putting promo code Perez10 at checkout. Again, a big thanks to Hemp Honey for sponsoring today's video. I really appreciate it. So if you guys have been following the channel recently, you know I've had the awesome opportunity to check out a lot of movies early, whether it be press screenings that I'm invited to or being sent at-home screeners, physical and digital. And one of the coolest things I received in the mail recently actually was this box from Neon, where they sent me a bunch of their movies, a lot of which of course are from this year that I have not seen. And the most notable one in that box set for me was Ferrari, as at least here in the States it doesn't release until December 25th, Christmas Day, which is pretty early to be able to check it out and get a review up. Outside of that though, I know it has already had some film festival screenings, which is why there are some reviews online for the film already, which gave me some comfort to watch the film last night and do a review. Full transparency, I'm reviewing this the day after having seen it, as I actually filmed a 14-minute unedited video last night that I was actually pretty proud of, only to find out that I had not plugged this mic in and there was no good audio. So that kind of broke my heart. Hopefully I can still get out my thoughts the same way that I did last night here in this video. Let's talk a little bit about what Ferrari's all about, as I went into this with absolutely no knowledge, and I'm not necessarily somebody who's well versed in the world of automobile companies or automobiles in general. You know, I've never really been a car guy. I can easily appreciate a cool car that passes by. I can see a cool car scene in a movie and appreciate it for what it is. You know, I can appreciate cars on a lot of levels, but it's not really ever something I've dove into myself. It's not something I'm overly well versed in. I'm the kind of dude that as long as it's got four wheels and an engine and runs, I'm totally good. With all that said though, this movie is more of a drama than it is about the cars, though of course the cars do have a main focus in this movie. The movie opens up and it tells us that the Ferraris, Mr. and Mrs. Ferrari, who were played by Adam Driver and Penelope Cruz in this film, opened the company in late 1947, post-war in Italy. And the movie jumps forward though about 10 years later to 1957, when we see that Ferrari is no longer necessarily as financially viable as it once was. And they find themselves in a situation where now they need to try to find partnerships with other manufacturers to try to sell more Ferrari cars so that they can actually do what they actually want to focus on, or at least what Enzo Ferrari wants to focus on, which is racing these cars. And so there is a big race coming up very soon, and they try to use this opportunity to try to kind of pull in other manufacturers, other companies such as Ford, to take a look at them, partner up with them, and help fund the Ferrari name to be able to, you know, create more cars, sell more cars, and continue to do what they do with these cars. While this is all going on, you do recognize immediately that there are some issues going on in the marital situation between Mr. and Mrs. Ferrari, like I said before, played by Adam Driver and Penelope Cruz. They're without a doubt the standouts of the film, with Penelope Cruz probably giving the strongest performance of the two of them, in my opinion. She has less scenes in the film than Adam Driver does, and I do think Adam Driver does give a great performance throughout the course of the film, but I found that Penelope Cruz's performance throughout the course of the film was the one I found myself latching onto the most, and the one I could kind of feel for the most as the movie was going on. Enzo Ferrari in this film, as far as how he's depicted here, is not necessarily the most likable guy. He's very selfish, he's very in his way, he does what he wants to do, and because of that you have a lot of strain in the household. They've also gone through some personal tragedy after the loss of their son, which has pretty much ruined their relationship. While this is all going on though, we're introduced to Shailene Woodley, who plays the mistress to Enzo Ferrari, who he actually has a secret son with. And of course this just adds more drama to the already broken marital situation going on between Mr. and Mrs. Ferrari. And that's pretty much what this movie is all about. You got this kind of love triangle kind of thing going on, but it's not really a love triangle, just a broken marriage, a mistress on the side with a kid, and you have this company trying to find a way to better their name, better their financial standings, so that they can become a better name in the business world as time goes on. There's some drama in there. There's some other things, of course, I don't want to spoil. But going into this, I wasn't familiar with Enzo Ferrari's story. I don't know what liberties they took in terms of the story. I don't know what name changes were made. I don't know what changes to the overall story were made here. So I went into it completely and utterly blind. And what I can say about the film on an overall level is that it is undoubtedly incredibly well made. Whether it be the cinematography, the very subtle but often impactful musical score throughout the course of the film, the great performances for the most part throughout the course of the film, and the production design that puts you into the time period, this film is incredibly well made in a lot of ways, with that latter thing I just said being one of the biggest standouts. Whether it be the costume design, the cars used throughout the course of the film, the locations used, the buildings used, whatever the case may be, this film does what any good time period film should do, which is put you in that time period. You know, any good period piece should make you feel like you're in that time, and without a doubt Ferrari definitely did that, as it did feel like 1950s Italy on an overall level with the aesthetic and feel of this film. Now, where I struggled with this movie, though, if I'm completely and utterly honest, is in its screenplay and its overall narrative, as I consistently found myself bored throughout the runtime of this film. It's one of those movies where I went into it wanting to love it. I love the people involved in the film. I love the people behind the camera, in front of the camera, and I was just really going into it expecting it to be an awesome movie. I wanted to love this film. But you know, when you go and watch a movie and you're excited to see it, you want to love it, but kind of have to come to terms when you're about halfway through the film that you're not loving it as much as you were hoping you would. Well, that's what happened for me when it came to Ferrari, as I was incredibly impressed with all the top tier filmmaking that was utilized to make this film what it was and to bring it to life, but I ultimately never found myself gripped by the narrative or the characters, seemingly just kind of having me bored throughout majority of the runtime. And by the time I got to the end of the movie, I can genuinely say that I kind of just shrugged my shoulders when it came to the story, the characters, or even a lot of the performances. Now, I mentioned before that the performances are good, and I do think that Adam Driver and Penélope Cruz are the standouts. But Shailene Woodley's in here as well, and I do think she does a fine job. But where I struggled with this film are with the accents, as of course this film takes place in Italy and actually has a nice mix of some side characters that are clearly really Italian, and it only made the actors who are putting on an accent just stand out that much more. For me, most notably, Adam Driver and Shailene Woodley. Two great actors that I've seen in tons of other things and have praised on countless occasions, and two actors that I don't necessarily think are bad in this film. I do think that they have good performance moments, especially Adam Driver, who steals the show a lot of times. But I can genuinely say that the accents were not top tier here for me, where it was just so noticeable that they were putting on accents. Shailene Woodley probably the most in comparison to the two, but there are times where Adam Driver as well is speaking, and it's just so clear that his American accent is coming out in a lot of the dialogue over the Italian accent, and it was super distracting to me. And by no means am I a dialect coach, and by no means am I an expert in the Italian accent, but as somebody who works and deals with a lot of tourists in a tourist heavy area, I speak to Italian folks on a daily basis, so I've become pretty familiar with at least just the general sound of Italian accents. I can have somebody come up to me and speak to me, and I can be like, hey, you're from Italy, right? And I'll be like, yeah, how'd you know? And I'll be like, your accent. So I've been able to pick up on it at least enough where I recognize that it is Italian, enough to the point where Adam Driver and Shailene Woodley's performances here, while good on their own, accent-wise just distracted me, and ultimately it just had to be something I mentioned here in this review. Penélope Cruz is probably the one of the three of them that I think had the stronger Italian accent, but to be completely and utterly honest, a lot of that I think is helped by the fact that she already has, Hispanic accent in and of itself. So I think it was able to translate a little bit, though she does just sound like Penélope Cruz at times, but she's the one I felt fit into the world of Italy a lot better than Adam Driver and Shailene Woodley, who just felt like American actors putting on accents, even if I liked their performances. But at its core, this is a film that I found to be very well made, with a really shocking moment at one point that had me and my fiance gasping, and that we did not expect to come happening. Again, going into this with no knowledge on the story. I think that kind of benefited us to a degree. But what I can genuinely say about this film is that it is incredibly well made. I just wish I loved it more. I wish I found myself more gripped to the story and the narrative. I just found myself bored. There's nothing in me that's clamoring to revisit the film. There's nothing in me that's excited to really even recommend this film to people, run to people and say, you need to check out Ferrari. I am very curious to see what the reception of this film is going to be as it kind of rolls out to a wider audience. I think there's going to be a percentage of people who love this film, think it's fantastic, and I think there's going to be people like myself that are just kind of torn on it, that just really love all the filmmaking that went into it, but just struggled narratively with the film and just never really found themselves emotionally attached to what was going on in the movie. And I can also see a camp of people who just find this film to be flat out boring, that maybe think it's overhyped. Whatever the case may be, we have no idea what people are going to say about this movie just yet, so I'm kind of happy I got to check it out early. I've seen a couple of reviews, but they've been kind of all over the place. Like I mentioned, some people have really praised the film, and some people have also kind of said that the film was boring to them. And unfortunately, I loved the idea of the film. I went into it hoping that this film would be awesome. I went into this movie expecting just a lot of, just really cool prestige filmmaking. And while you have a lot of that on one hand, the thing that's the most important to me when it comes to a movie is the screenplay, is the story, or the characters. And I've said it time and time again, the worst thing a movie can be for me is boring. And genuinely, I just felt bored throughout the run time of Ferrari. I wanted to love it a lot more, and I just don't necessarily think it's a movie I'm going to think about all that much more as we get out of this award season. So a big thanks to you guys for watching. Definitely let me know what you guys thought about Ferrari, if you got to check it out at one of those earlier festival screenings or maybe some other way that you got to see the movie. And is it a movie that's on your radar to go and check out? Whatever the case may be, leave any and all comments down below, and I definitely want to hear what you guys have to say about Ferrari. So I'll see you beautiful people in the next one. Bye-bye.